been very clear that this idea of long or lifetime employment is all but fallen by the wayside. In fact, depending on your age, the average lifespan for an employee is between 2 to around 4.5 years. So that's really not that long at all. It's true, we now live in an age of complete uncertainty. And I believe that the best way to navigate an uncertain world is to constantly learn new things. But I want to take this one step further and not just think about a perpetual learner, but think about how to be a super perpetual learner. I know this might sound a little bit funny, but stick with me. Being a perpetual learner is a concept and an idea that you've probably heard about. You may have seen it on the news, you may have read about it in some sort of a report that an analyst firm has published, but being a super perpetual learner is slightly different. And the difference is subtle but crucial. Being a perpetual learner, as I mentioned, is this idea of learning how to learn. But if you think about it, it's something that you get just by being human. In other words, you know something now that you didn't know 5 years ago, something that you didn't know 10 years ago, 15 years ago. In other words, every year that you're on planet Earth, you inherently learn new things. You experience new things. So being a perpetual learner happens a little bit organically, but being a super perpetual learner takes that one step further. So you're probably thinking, what is a super perpetual learner? Again, I'm glad you asked. Being a super perpetual learner essentially means two things. The first is that you're learning all the time. Daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, you're constantly learning new things. In other words, you're doing so quickly at a very rapid pace, right? We talked about how fast the world of work is changing, how fast technology is changing. So being a super perpetual learner means that you're keeping up at least to that pace. The second criteria of being a super perpetual learner is that you're applying the things that you learn on a regular basis. In other words, you're not just learning new things for the sake of learning them, but you're actually using the things that you learn. They're kind of like tools in your utility belt, and you're constantly pulling those tools out to work on different projects, applying those tools to new scenarios and environments, etc. So that's the difference between just learning new things versus learning new things all the time and applying the things that you learn to new environments, scenarios, and situations. Perpetual learner, super perpetual learner. Let's talk about a couple habits of super perpetual learners. Things that super perpetual learners do that keep them one step ahead of everybody else. The first thing that super perpetual learners have a good grasp of is what their learning style is. If you don't know what your learning style is, it becomes very hard to learn new things and to do so effectively, quickly, at scale, and on an ongoing basis. So the first thing you need to understand is what's your learning style. Some people are visual, some people prefer to read, some people prefer to take quizzes and assessments. You need to understand what is it, what tools, what mediums out there help you learn most effectively. So that's the first thing that super perpetual learners have a very good grasp of that most others don't. The second thing that super perpetual learners do a very good job of is they have hands-on experience. In other words, they don't just learn new things, they actually, as I mentioned, they apply the things that they learn. Now, learning, again, for itself is great. It's not that it's a bad thing. Learning new things is always a wonderful thing to do. But if you can apply the things that you learn, that makes you more valuable and more experienced than simply learning those things. The difference is between learning to swim by watching videos and just by practicing the stroke versus actually jumping in the water. Clearly, if you actually jump in the water and get that hands-on experience of being in the pool, of being in the ocean, you'll improve, you'll become a better swimmer. Whereas if you just read about it and watch videos about it and don't ever actually jump in the water, you're not going to be improving as much, and in fact, you'll probably never even know if you're improving. A couple other things super perpetual learners do a great job of. They ask a lot of questions. They're constantly present while they're learning. In other words, they're not always multitasking and staring at their phone and looking at the computer and then trying to learn something and then talking to somebody else over here. That doesn't work. They're focused and they're trying to absorb the information as they get it. Super perpetual learners are also willing to be wrong. So super perpetual learners are very good at being okay with being wrong, embracing vulnerability, embracing failure. The good news is that it's never been cheaper or easier to learn new things. You can learn things on YouTube, you can take courses like this online, you can read things online, you can follow people's tweets. It's never been easier to learn new things. And the smartest person in the room is always the person who knows where to go to get access to information and to learn those new things. So if you think about it, there's really no reason for why you shouldn't be able to be a super perpetual learner. Think about some of the world's greatest leaders and innovators and inventors. Thomas Edison, Steve Jobs, the Wright brothers, Einstein. All of these people were super perpetual learners. These are people who constantly experimented with things, who constantly tested things out, who constantly knew where to go to get access to information, who to go to get access to information. And for some of these folks, this is long before the internet existed, long before we had smartphones and computers and anything like this. Right? I mean, imagine 20, 50, 100 years ago what it was like to be a super perpetual learner. Pretty tough. But today, I mean, you can just take out your phone, open your computer, and get access to anything that you need. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. Check out futureofworkpodcast.com for more content. And do me a favor, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or whatever your preferred channel is. Thank you.